What is classical liberalism? It's a set of ideas that places the freedom of the individual as its central feature. Classical liberals disagree about many things, but they agree, I think, on 10 core principles. Number one is that liberty is the primary political value. We all have lots of different values. We care about our family, our church. But when it comes to deciding what to do politically, what should the government do, classical liberals have one clear standard. Does this increase or does it reduce the freedom of the individual? The government should only act to prevent harm to others. Second principle, individualism. That the individual is more important than the collective. We should not sacrifice the interests of individuals for what some people argue is the common good. This was the central feature of communism and fascism. The individuals didn't matter. Every individual matters. Every individual is worthy of respect. Third principle, skepticism about power. Power is the ability to get other people to do what you want that otherwise they would not do. Government, for example, often claims we're forcing you to do X because it's in your own interest to do so. Whereas very often, when people with power do that, it's really because it's good for themselves. Classical liberals believe that the individual is the best judge of their own interests. We can try and recommend things, but in the end, the individual is the best judge of their own interests. Other people should not force them to do things that they do not want to do. Fourth, the rule of law. This is the idea that there's some higher principles by which we should examine what government does, laws that are passed, government actions. Just like the US Supreme Court will sometimes strike down pieces of legislation that Congress has passed and the President has signed because it goes against certain principles embodied in the US Constitution. Classical liberals believe that certain principles of the rule of law should be applied to what every government does anywhere in the world. A classic example is equality before the law. People should be treated the same regardless of their race or gender or sexual orientation. That's why classical liberals have always objected to the idea that there should be laws that treat, say, blacks and whites differently. 5. Civil society. Civil society are those voluntary organisations that exist between the individual and the state. Classical liberals believe that most social problems can be more effectively dealt with through these voluntary organisations like the family, like the church, like charitable organisations, because they have the knowledge about the individuals in which they're dealing with. Civil society is much more effective than government bureaucracies and inflexible rules that can't change depending on people's individual circumstances. So the civil society can do many of the things that we now look to for the welfare state to do. 6. Spontaneous order. Order, it means the existence of regularity and predictability in the world. When people are making decisions about what to do, they need to be able to predict what the results of making those decisions should be. Many people seem to assume that order requires some institution, some body to manipulate and organise things. Classical liberals don't believe that. They believe that order can arise spontaneously. People, through their voluntary interaction, create the rules by which people can live by. Classic example is that of language. Nobody invented the English language. It arose in terms of people communicating with each other, and yet certain rules have applied through that process. We don't need people to plan our lives. 7. Free markets. That economic exchange should be left to voluntary activity between individuals. Government should not tell people where to work, how to save, what to build, what to produce. This should be left to voluntary interaction by people. You need private property to be able to do that, and you need to ensure that when there is disputes, they can be peacefully resolved. But history shows us is that leaving things to free markets rather than government planning or organisation increases prosperity, reduces poverty, increases jobs, provides goods that people want to buy. 8. Toleration. Toleration is the belief that one should not interfere with things of which one disapproves. Toleration does not mean that you allow people to do things because you agree with it, because you think it's a good thing. It's a question of having certain moral principles. I think this action is wrong, but I will not try and force my opinions, for example, through government, to stop the things that I disapprove of. A classic case of that for classical liberals is free speech. People should be allowed to say things of which we strongly disapprove. We're tolerating things even though we dislike and disapprove it. 9. Peace. Peace is a state where we can go about our business without violence or war. That's best achieved, according to classical liberals, is not by interfering in other countries. In other words, they favour a non-interventionist foreign policy. Their view in terms of our interaction with other nations, it should be based on what's commonly called the 4 freedoms. There should be free movement of capital and labour, people, goods and services. And I would add something as well, the free movement of ideas. If we have a world in which this free movement is embraced, then I think we'll have a world, and classical liberals believe, we would have a world based on peace. And finally, limited government. That there are very few things on which the government should do. The goal of the government is simply to protect a life, liberty and property. Anything beyond that is not justifiable. A strictly limited government. So these are the 10 principles of classical liberalism. Are you a classical liberal?